Hey everybody, and welcome back to the JavaScript Beginner series. In the last episode we discussed about what the document object model, that is DOM, is and how to select the elements of the DOM, how we can modify the attributes of the elements we selected and change their text content. And this video is kind of like a part 2 to the previous episode of the topic of the DOM. So if you have no knowledge about the DOM whatsoever, make sure you check out the previous episode first. The link is in the description. And in this episode, we are diving deeper into DOM manipulation by dynamically creating and removing elements, and we'll also make our page interactive by using event listeners. So by the end of this session, you'll be able to modify your web page on the fly and handle user interactions like a pro. So let's get started. So first up, we have creating and removing elements. So JavaScript allows us to create, modify and remove elements dynamically, meaning we can add content to our web page in real time or even remove content from our web page based on user interactions. So let's start by creating an element and adding it to the page. So I'm going to open VS Code, type our default code format and then create a heading called my list. So h2 and then my list. Well, below the heading, I'm going to create an unordered list which has the following items. Item 1. And then to copy this line of code, you can use a shortcut by pressing Alt, Shift and down arrow 2 times to create 2 more lines of code. So, item 2 and item 3. And I'm going to link our JavaScript file to our HTML by using the script tag. Script src equals script.js, and then I'll head over to our JavaScript file and create an element through the method called .createElement. So pretty straightforward. I'm going to create a new item, so let new item equals document.createElement. So document.createElement, and since we are going to create a list item, I'm going to use a list tag inside this method. So this item creates a new list element in the memory. However, it is not yet added to the HTML page. It is just created and stored in the new item variable. So let's give this variable or this list item some text before adding it to the HTML. So we'll use the inner text method that we discussed in our previous episode, which changes the text that an element can contain. So inner text equals I am new here. So in order to add this to the HTML page, we will use a method called append child. Now, as the name suggests, we will append this new element or new item to an already existing parent element in the HTML file. So in this case, the parent element is the unordered list. So we have to select this unordered list tag before adding the child. So we will select the list. So let list equals document.querySelector. Query selector, and then I'll put here the unordered list tag, and after the parent element is selected, we can use the append child method. So write the parent element's name or the variable that you have selected it in, and append child. So write the variable name that you want to append, and since we have selected and stored the item in this variable, I'll put append child new item. So let's say if some changes have took place in our HTML file. So I'll head over to HTML and then go live, and we can see that I am new here is appended to the HTML, even though we haven't put up any such element in our original HTML file. It is still appended, so hence a new element is added to the HTML. So now that we are done with adding an element to the HTML page or the HTML structure, let's try removing an element. So there are 2 ways to do this in JavaScript, and they are remove child and remove. So the first method, that is a remove child, kind of works like an opposite method of append child. You select an item or select the parent element, and you select another item that you want to remove through document or .query selector or any other selector of your choice, and then you remove the item. So let's say we want to remove the same item that we added to the HTML structure. So I would choose the parent element, that is list dot remove child, and then I would choose the element that I want to remove. So let's say new item, and let's save this and see what happens to our structure. So we can see that the element that we just added previously has been removed. Now, to show you that we can select any item on our structure, I'll try to remove the first element by giving it an ID. So let's say I'll give this an ID called first. So let's save this, and first select that item, that is let first item equals document dot get element by ID, and I'll type in first. So list, that is our parent element, the unordered list, dot remove child first item. Let's save this and let's see the changes in our web page. So we can observe that the first item has been removed as well. Now this approach is useful when you specifically need to remove an element from its known parent. Now the second method is even simpler. Instead of selecting a parent, we can just call .remove to directly remove the element that we have selected. So I'll delete this code altogether, and I'll use the remove function, so our method. So since we have selected the new item already, I'm going to write it, and the syntax goes like this: new item, that is the item you want to remove, and dot remove, and it is simple as that. And if we click on save, we'll see that the new item has been removed. So let's try this with our first item. So if I select the first item again, let first item equals, I'll use a query selector this time, document dot query selector. Now a thing that you have to keep in mind when using the query selector is you have to put in a hashtag for the ID. So hashtag first, so this has been selected. Now first item dot remove. So we have removed the first item as well. And keep in mind that these changes are only taking place when the HTML page is loaded. It does not change the actual HTML structure. So when we see the structure, it is same, and if we comment out this line, that is our JavaScript line, we can observe that no changes actually take place in the actual HTML structure. So you should keep this in mind. So the changes have took place after I uncommented the line that connects our JavaScript file to our HTML file. So .remove is a cleaner and modern approach that works in all major browsers and removes the element immediately without needing a parent. Both methods achieve the same result, removing an element from the DOM. So you can use either one depending on what makes more sense for your project. Now that we are done with adding and removing an element from the HTML structure or the DOM, let's have a look at a way to make our project or web page interactive by responding to user actions like clicks, hovers, or key presses. So JavaScript provides a addEventListener method which lets us execute code when an event occurs. An event is basically user interaction or whatever happens with our HTML elements. So for that, let's first create a button in our HTML page, and we'll say button and give this an ID called click me. So click me. Let's say this button says click me, and save this and head over to our JavaScript. Now if we want to make our web page do stuff when we click on the button, we start by selecting the button that we want. So let's select button equals document dot get element by ID, and our ID is click me. So click me. And since we want to make the interaction with this button trigger change or any task to be performed, we add an event listener to the button. So button dot addEventListener. This is a method. So after writing addEventListener, as the first parameter, we want to write what event should trigger the function, so or the task that we want to perform. So if the button is clicked, this should trigger the event. So I'm writing click and a function which, let's say, alerts the user. So alert warning, button has been clicked, has been clicked. So let's close this. And what this does is we tell JavaScript that when this button is clicked, we should run this function. And this method keeps our code cleaner and allows us to add multiple event listeners to the same element. And there are many such events that you can include in the event listener that you can create. So which includes mouse down, when you drag an item, when a mouse hovers over an item, or when you press a key on the keyboard, or double click, and many more. So first let's test this event listener out. I have opened this in our browser, and when I click the button, as you can see, the function which triggers the alert function has been triggered, so or executed. Now when I change this event to double click, that is denoted by DBL, and click and save it, when I click on this 2 times, so double click, the button triggers the event listener which triggers the function. So if I click this a single time, nothing happens, but if I click this 2 times, the event is triggered. Like this, there are many events that you can explore and talk about, and I would definitely encourage you to read some documentation and find out what events that you can include in or through the event listener, and do try it out on your own. So after learning about event listeners, we can move on to the topic of event delegation, which is handling multiple elements efficiently. Now imagine we have a long list of items, right? Here we have only 3, and that's valid. But if we have a long list of items and we want each one to change a color or change their color when clicked, instead of attaching individual event listeners to each and every one of the items, we can use event delegation. Attaching an event listener to each item is very inefficient, since you would have to write this block of code for the number of buttons that you have. So this is just for 1 button, and just for 3 buttons you have to repeat this block of code 3 separate times. Now what event delegation does is it attaches a event listener to the parent element, and it checks the condition of the child, and then it triggers an element. So if that is not clear with the explanation that I just gave, I will comment this out and show you an example. So if I type out document dot query selector, and I select our parent element, that is the unordered list, and then I add an event listener to this parent element. So let's say I'll add click event and a function which takes a parameter, that is event. So let's say if event dot target dot tag name triple equals to, which is strictly equals to li, that is our list item tag, we will change its color. So event dot target, that is the element that we have clicked or which triggers an event, dot color equals, let's say, green. Now you might already know what is going to happen. So we attach a single event listener to the unordered list instead of each list element. When a user clicks an item, JavaScript checks if the clicked element is a list element and then changes its color. This ensures that the newly added list items also get the same functionality without extra code. Now, if we had 10 separate list items instead of 3, we would have had to attach an event listener to each and every one of them. But with event delegation, we can just attach an event to the parent, check the condition of the target, and then trigger the event. So this is much more convenient and much more efficient. So let's check this out. I'll save this code and I'll click on the list item. See, it turned green. Now this will turn green as well. And if I remove our remove tag or remove method and save, we will see that the first item also appears, or the last item also appears, and if we click on this, it will turn green. Now if we add a separate element, so let's say net new item 2 equals document dot create element, and we want a list element, so li, change its text content to dot text content equals I am the newest, let's say. So if we add this on to our parent element, this event listener should attach to this newly added element as well, since it will fulfill the condition of the target tag name being list. So list dot append child new item 2. So let's save this and see, I am the newest, and if we click on this, this will turn green as well, as along with every other list item inside the parent element. So this is how event delegation works. And if you're wondering about this event parameter inside this function, this is an event object that gets automatically passed to the event handler when an event occurs. So it contains the details about the event, such as the type of the event, the target element that triggered the event, which is represented by this event.target, and the information about the keyboard or mouse interactions if applicable. So this event right here represents the click event that happens anywhere inside the unordered list element, and event.target refers to the specific element that was clicked inside the list. So the condition event.target.tagname equals li checks if the clicked element is a list element, that is the li element, and if it is so, it changes the text color of that target to green. Well, congratulations, you have made it this far, but can you apply what you have learned? In the next video, we're building a practical project that combines everything from this series, so it's your chance to code along and level up your JavaScript skills. So hit that subscribe button and I'll see you there.